after 11, so I'm going to go ahead and get us rolling. Welcome, everyone. If we haven't met, my name is Suzanne Neave. I'm your CEO for the Florida Festivals and Events Association. Happy to have you all here with us today. We are running this webinar style, so right now we have cameras and mics off for everyone, but we do have the ability to unmute you for questions, and you can certainly use the chat for any questions or conversation, or the Q&A option as well too. So just a few housekeeping notes on that. We are not recording this, so we do appreciate everyone's full attention so you can capture all of the content and be able to engage with it as well too. So appreciate you taking the time today. I know you're going to find it useful. Amma was one of our highest rated speakers at this year's conference, so we're thrilled to bring her back for a webinar, and hope we get her back for some more events as well too. So I'm going to go ahead and let you roll with it and take over, and let me know if you need anything from me in the interim.
Thank you so much, Suzanne, and hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this amazing Wednesday for navigating tough conversations with confidence. I'm not sure about you all, but some of you might be getting ready for performance reviews or performance check-ins, or even just connecting with people over the holidays, because we know how it can be connecting with family sometimes. So stay tuned. My name is Amma Ajapong. I go by That Inclusion Lady. And you see my credentials on the board: 15 years of HR experience, certified EEOC investigator, as well as having an MBA in global management. But I would say the coolest part about me is that I am a millennial boy mom. And my mom is a baby boomer. My grandmother is a 92-year-old traditionalist. So talk about having confidence with tough conversations, right? Those of you probably can totally relate. As you see, I am the CEO of Inclusion Enterprise, and with that, our mission is to cultivate inclusive environments by creating feedback-driven workplace cultures. We truly believe a workplace can thrive, a friendship could thrive, just pure relationships can thrive if it's based off of trust and trusting your feedback. But the way in which we want to do that is by removing behavior barriers so we can have those tough conversations. Now, real quick, rules of engagement. As we are engaging with each other throughout this time, please utilize the chat. I want to see you light this chat up, okay? Let me know what your thoughts are. If you have questions, we'll do Q&A at the end, but we don't have to wait. Put it in the chat. I have it up. I'll be paying attention to it because I want to hear your thoughts and how this is resonating with you. If that is fair or clear or yes, please put yes in the chat. If you're like, no, I don't really feel like engaging with you, put no in the chat. Either or is okay. So I am waiting to see some responses in the chat before we move on. Waiting on everyone. And if you are not able to find the chat, it looks like an envelope in the bottom middle part of your screen. And if you're like, I'm still warming up, that is okay.
So it looks like I might have an issue with the chat. It's saying it's disabled, so I'm going to work on fixing that.
Got it.
In the meantime, y'all can use the Q&A because you can type in there, but let me try to work on the other end.
No worries. Just happy to know y'all weren't ignoring me, okay? Thank you, Suzanne. So here's the thing, everyone. I know what your problem is. You're like, you just met me and you already telling me your problem? Yes, you don't like to give feedback. You let comments slide and patterns of behavior or performance continue, and you just let it sit and fester inside. Whether personally or professionally, you just say nothing. And what happens? It manifests itself as bad attitudes, as gossip, my favorite, passive-aggressive actions, or blow-ups. And all of that because you never actually solved the problem, because you won't just have the conversation. But what if I told you today, to all of you logging in, that after hanging out with me today, you will have some tools to navigate tough conversations with confidence? What if I told you that after hanging out with me, you will have a better understanding of what's happening in the brain so you can depersonalize that person's response? And what if if I told you you might feel a little more inclined to go have that conversation you've been dreading because you know that person is difficult, or you know that person will get defensive, upset, or emotional, or just shut down? So, what if I told you you would know exactly how to combat that? Well, here's the thing. I need you to get your pencil and your paper ready to take notes because I'm about to drop some gems. Humbly speaking, let's get started. So, remember how I told you we create a feedback driven workplace culture? This is some of the ways in which we do it. See, I believe in giving the questions and the answers up front. And so this is one of our many ways. And what we're going to focus on today is creating a feedback safe environment. Because it's one thing to say, I love feedback, give me feedback. And it's another thing to completely freak out once they give it to you, or you melt down because they're melting down. Okay. So, one thing, write this down. I want you to remember, if you are a leader or even if you're an employee, you are the thermostat. See, you set the temperature. I'm here in Atlanta. It's so cold. I don't like it. Okay. I'm originally a Miami girl. I don't like this 30 something degree weather in the morning, but I am the thermostat for my son, for my team. And see, I am the thermostat. They are the thermometer. See, the thermometer reads the temperature. Okay. We set the temperature, the thermometer reads it. And so when we're thinking about creating a feedback safe environment, it is all about setting the tone and controlling the environment. So you can do this by consistency, by predictability. Your team wants to know what to expect from you. You can do this by setting clear expectations. I strongly suggest encouraging two-way feedback. So just as you are telling them feedback, you also should ask for feedback, right? And there's a myriad of ways you can do that. But while you do that, continue to assess, measure, and continuously improve. But today, we are going to focus on creating that feedback safe environment by focusing on managing difficult conversations. Now, when we think about managing difficult conversations, there's a lot of steps to this. I have various workshops that build up to managing difficult conversations. We talk about building trust. We talk about building relationships. We talk about a feedback framework so you can know how to give the feedback and know how to receive the feedback. And then after you've mastered all of that, that's when we talk about managing difficult conversations. Because what happens when you do all the right things? You're like, Amma, okay, you coach me. I built the relationship. I've been consistent. I've been reliable. I'm operating out of the best interest of the team, and I gave the very necessary feedback, and it still went wrong. What do I do then? It's just completely gone left. Well, first I'll say, let's start with listening. You see, listening is a skill, and it's very hard to listen at times because it can interrupt our brains, right? We have to tell ourselves, yes, we know we're going to listen. Yes, we are here and present in the moment. You are not being attacked. Okay. So when you see this picture, you see a few things. You see two people facing together, face to face. You see them looking at each other. You see one person slightly leaned in. It looks like they're very attentive. But when we think about listening, what are some of those skills, right? So the first thing you want to do is set an intention of listening. When you set the intention of listening, you're telling your brain, okay, listen, before the conversation starts, remind yourself that your goal is to understand, not to respond. Okay? And your goal is not to fix things immediately. Even if we're dealing with performance, our brain is to understand why they think their performance is okay, or why they think they have certain obstacles in place or barriers in place. What they think accountability is. That's our purpose, and that is what we're here to understand. Now, mentally, you also must commit to listening fully before offering your thoughts. And so that could be like, I sometimes have a pen and I'll like click the pen, or I'll have a notepad and I'll write notes while they're talking because I'm one that wants to respond. I don't know if any of you are like that, but I'm one who wants to respond when I hear something. Either I want to respond to validate or I want to respond to justify. And if I'm honest, most times it's to justify because I can get defensive and I like to pull receipts. You know, like the young folks say, they say, "Oh, let me pull these receipts and let you know how you wrong," right? And it's something I have been working on for years. But in the moment when my brain wants to do that, I mentally commit to listening. So I'll write notes. And I'll also tell them ahead of time, hey, while you're talking, I am going to write some notes down just so I don't interrupt, right? Because it'll be a little awkward, you know, someone giving you feedback or talking to you about something and you're like writing feverishly and they're like, what's going on? This is weird, right? So another thing is to allow pauses and silence. See, this is where we get into cultural competence because here in the Western world, we don't like silence. We feel like something's wrong. So if we have silence, we're quick to be like trying to fill it in with something. Sometimes that person just needs to process. So again, when things start to go left, allow pauses, allow silence, allow someone to gather their thoughts. Silence can signal that you're thinking about what they said rather than rushing to respond. And remember, I'm going to say it again. You are listening to understand, not listening to respond. Now, when you acknowledge and reflect, once they finish speaking, repeat or summarize what you've heard to confirm the understanding. You could say something like, it sounds like you're frustrated, feeling frustrated because that project isn't progressing as expected. Am I hearing you correctly? But here's the thing, avoid inserting your own perspective immediately because you want to make sure they feel heard. Okay. Now, these are just all rules of listening. Before we get into what is actually happening and their emotional responses and what to say, we have to silence our brain. We must silence our brains to listen. You see, studies show that we can think anywhere between 60 and 70,000 thoughts a day, but we could never do that consciously. So sometimes we just need to be quiet, sit in silence, and let it process. 5 seconds can feel like forever, but I promise you it's not. And then afterwards, it's the thoughtful follow up questions. This really lets someone know they're listening. So you can say things like, hey, can you say more about that? How did that make you feel? This shows that you have value in their perspective and that you're curious and not just wanting to talk. Okay? Because all of us have been in conversations before where we don't really feel like that person's listening, where we feel like they're sitting there and just listening for their next response. And that they give us these cookie cutter responses like, my brother does this, don't tell him, he lives in Florida. And sometimes I'll be telling him about something and he'll be like, yup, that's what's up. But dang, man, that's tough. What's tough? I mean, I just told you that we came from wrestling. Like, what's tough about that? Oh, you're not listening, right? So we don't want to be that person. We want to respond with open-ended questions. So those open-ended questions, I'll say it again. It could be, how did that make you feel? Can you say more about that? You can say, tell me more. What was that like for you? Be quiet. Because these will help you manage your urge, your impulse to interrupt. And this will also help you get to the core of understanding. And so here's the thing. When we are doing this, we're slowing our brains down because something is happening when we receive feedback or it's happening to the other person when we're giving feedback. And that is called the amygdala hijack. Okay. The amygdala hijack is something really interesting. The amygdala is like a little chihuahua in the back of your brain. So it just wants to take over. Okay. And it's really there to keep us safe. It's in the limbic system of your brain in the back, and it's really there to sense threat. And with that threat, you get four things: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Now, fight does not always mean I'm going to punch you in your throat. Okay? I mean, it can, but it doesn't always mean that. Fight can also mean getting defensive, getting upset, getting angry. Flight, those are those people who just walk away. I don't have time for this, and they walk away. Freeze, those are the people that shut down. Fawn, those are the people that are overly accommodating, but nothing gets done. Oh, I feel like I feel some of you. I know I don't see your faces, but I see your faces because you're probably thinking of someone as soon as I said that. Or you're probably like, ooh, that hit kind of tough, right? So think about these things. And what happens is we might judge someone else's amygdala response more than they judge ours. They're all amygdala responses. So our purpose of having these type of conversations is to say, how can I get them from the amygdala to the prefrontal cortex? You see, the frontal cortex is where all of the rational thinking happens. We want to calm that parasympathetic nerve. We want to get them out that limbic system. We want to get them to the front of their brain so they can actually hear what we're saying. Because how many times have we given someone feedback or been in a tough conversation and you're telling that person how they are not performing up to par, or how that person might not be a good friend, or how they don't show up for you? And all they hear is they are not enough or that you hate them. You know, this happens with my son sometimes. I'll tell him, you know, you didn't write that well. You didn't do a good job with that, buddy. And I need you to rewrite that because you are not turning that homework into your teacher that way. And his response will be, so you're saying I'm not good at anything? Wait, hold on. What conversation are we having? Right? Like, I didn't say that at all, actually. Listen to my words. And I'm sure many of you feel that way too. You've had conversations with loved ones. You've had conversations with employees, and oftentimes you feel like you're not being heard or that they are just filtering through your words in the way in which we don't understand. That is because they are in the amygdala. So let's break this down a little bit more. Let's break this down a little bit more. We are saying no to the amygdala hijack, okay? And so how do we say no to the amygdala hijack? We have to focus on something called care, okay? Clarify, align. So let's look at this. When we know someone is in the amygdala hijack, we have to tell ourselves, okay, it's time to listen. Remember those things we talked about with listening? Okay, it's time to listen. And let's tap into care. So when that happens, remember the why. It's important to remember the why. So when conversations get uncomfortable, the instinct is either to retreat or react, but effective leaders know how to care through the discomfort. This model gives you a quick reset so you can stay grounded, clear, and connected. And here's the thing. I know you hear me saying leader a lot. I'm saying leader a lot. But I am also the believer that you don't need a title to be a leader. Yeah, I said it. You don't need a title to be a leader. You lead your families. You lead your community. You lead your workplace. You are engaging and inspiring your peers. So this applies to you whether you have a fancy title or not. But remember, when you are having tough conversations, you want to stay grounded, you want to stay clear, and you also want to stay connected. So I'm going to pause there for a second before we get into this care model to see, are there any questions of what we discussed thus far? Any questions about, ideas and tactics for listening? Any questions about staying connected? Any questions about what happens with the amygdala when we are having a difficult conversation? Let me see, Suzanne, do you see anything in the Q&A?
I don't, but I also did get that chat feature fixed now, so everyone should be able to utilize the chat as well.
You're awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica, for posting in there to test it for us. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Jessica.
She's letting us know the chat's working. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any questions thus far? Any comments? Like, I hear what you're saying, but it's hard to listen when I'm being attacked, right? Or it's hard to listen when we're having a conversation and this person is not being accountable. Any comments? I'm gonna pause. All right. So let's get into the C, which is clarify. So before you speak, remember your why. Why is this conversation happening? And what outcome do you want? So when emotions arise, it's so easy to lose sight of the purpose. And it's so easy to shift from the purpose of this conversation is to improve to the purpose of this conversation is for me to be right. My grandfather used to say, you can be dead right. And I know that sounds so morbid, but he always said, when he was teaching me how to drive, he always said, do you see the light just turned green? And you technically have the right of way to just go ahead and go. But it's also important to pause before you drive, because you can have someone driving through a red light. And yes, you would have been right? Going as soon as the light turned green, but there could have been awful and fatal repercussions from that. So I would say the same thing for these type of difficult conversations. Are we trying to be right, or are we trying to be effective? Yes, Pam, really great question. So I talk about this in my gift framework, and that is my workshop on how to give feedback. But the perfect way to do it is to start the conversation off with telling them exactly why you're having the conversation. So it could sound something like, hey, Pam, I want to talk to you about something I witnessed in the meeting yesterday. Is right now a good time to speak? So now their brain can reflect right back to maybe what you're talking about. Or you can say something like, hey, Pam, we had a conversation yesterday that didn't land so well for me. Can we further discuss that? Do you have some time? But what you're doing is alerting the brain. So you don't have to start off in a positive way, but you must start off in a very direct way so it can prep the brain. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. No problem, Pam. So when we talk about clarify, again, we don't want to lose sight of our purpose. And so it's about recentering your intention, whether it's understanding, whether it's accountability, or whether it's growth. It keeps you focused on the impact and not the impulse. Okay. And so if the conversation is focused on growth, anything they say, especially if you feel like they're trying you, because I feel like that sometimes, like, oh, you are coming for me. Oh my gosh, this conversation wasn't supposed to go there, right? We can easily just say, hey, I don't want to lose sight of why we're here. We are here for your growth. We are here for accountability. We are here for your performance, right? You get it right back to the purpose of the conversation, which you would have stated in the beginning. Next is align. So that means you want to pause and you want to breathe. Check in with yourself. Is your tone aligned with your intent? Ladies, sorry, don't mean to like call us out, but gotta call us out sometimes because I struggle with the same thing. Is our facial expression aligned with our intent? Okay? Because I'm someone whose face be facing. So I'll be sitting there saying one thing, but my face is like saying something else. So does our face, does our body language align with our intent? Alignment is about regulating before you respond so you can choose curiosity. Okay. Rachel, you said how I understand that we can do things, but it's hard to do in the middle of the conversation. Sometimes my mouth starts before my brain does. Do you have any tips for this? Breathing. If you remember your why and you're telling your brain, I'm going to listen. If you remember care, I need to practice care. You're telling yourself that in your brain. And then when you start to feel in your body, because we know in our body when we're starting to get upset, if we start to feel it in our body, that's when we can know to pause and breathe. It is also okay, Rachel, to pause in the moment and say, hey, I feel myself getting upset right now. And I want to be my best self for you in this moment so I can listen. We pause for just a second. And it could be a second or it can be for a day. But it's about being true to yourself, but also telling yourself to operate with care. Hopefully that helps. Now, again, we want to choose curiosity every time. Okay? Now, the R is reflect. So reflect. This is where awareness lives. Ask yourself, what's my part in this dynamic? What might the other person be experiencing? Write these questions down. What's my part in this dynamic? What might the other person be experiencing or feeling in the moment? And this turns confrontation into a conversation because it widens your perspective. So you are thinking about the other person while getting your point across. Imagine if both parties were doing this. Imagine if both parties were thinking about how they're coming across and how the other person might be feeling in the moment, or trying to show empathy. Like, you know what? I don't like when someone tells me where I fall short. So I know how I want to be handled with care. I want to be handled like a cup of tea, right? So let me do that for that person. And then finally, engage. That's the E. You want to move the conversation towards a productive place. That can mean asking, what would a better path forward look like for the both of us? Or simply agreeing on next steps. Sometimes, y'all, you got to agree to disagree. You know what? It's clear. I've heard what you've had to say. You've heard what I have to say. But it looks like our expectations are not aligning. It looks like we're going to have to just agree to disagree. But how can we move forward even in this space of lack of alignment, right? Engagement is not about winning. Listen to me. Engagement is not about winning. It's not win or lose. It's about progress. Imagine if that was the goal. It is about progress. I had a team member at one point in time. No, this is a better one. I had a client at one point in time, and we did not align on how they wanted to handle certain situations with their team. And it was a part of me like, you hired me. So wait a minute, you hired me. So how are you not following what I'm telling you to do? But my recommendations were so different than the actual client's leadership style. And so on many cases, I had to give the pros, the cons, and leave it up to them. It wasn't about winning. It was, what is the goal and what will show progress, even if it's in their way of doing it. Again, it's not about being right. It's about being effective. So when you find yourself in a difficult moment, remember to care. Remember to clarify, align, reflect, and engage. These 4 moves don't just make conversations easier, they make them more effective. Remember to care. Remember to go back to your why. Remember to pause and breathe. Remember to reflect. Create awareness. How am I coming off right now? How is this person experiencing me? Okay? And then also remember to move the conversation to a productive place. So I often have people say, okay, I'm doing this, I'm caring, but this person's still being a jerk. What do I do next? I find myself getting real mad, real mad. And now I'm feeling like I'm subjecting myself to bullying or abuse or verbal abuse. Like, hold on. What should I do? You can remove yourself. Nobody's telling you to sit there and navigate and practice care when the person is just surely not listening or committed to not receiving what you have to say. Some people are committed to being contrarians. That's okay too. But in those moments, you can again go back to reflect and go back to engage. I feel myself getting upset. And Rachel, I am so happy we had this conversation, but I feel like this is moving to an unproductive place. Let's pause for now and let's reconvene in 24 hours because I'm sure we want to bring our best selves to this conversation. And then you walk away and you take a walk, or you go do 478 breathing, or you go call your best friend that you know has your back, like the best friend that's ready to ride at dawn, right? That best friend, and you go let him have it. You get it out of you. You vent. You beep, 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 this beep. You do all of that, okay? But that's once you've separated yourself from the conversation. You know, Rachel, you know we all have that best friend that's ready. Like, point them out. Where are they? Do I need to come up to that job? Right? You need that sometimes. Yes, you need that because you got to let it out so you can get your brain back. Again, remember the amygdala? From the amygdala back to the prefrontal cortex. Okay, so we have talked about what to do with ourselves, right? But what's actually happening with this other person? How can we predict responses more? Well, we can do that. And sorry if anyone in here name is Sarah. This is not my framework. The CARE framework is mine. This one's not mine. This is an actual leadership framework. I forgot who coined the term, but it's called Sarah. So sorry to all the Sarahs out there. All right. So have you seen Sarah? This is what happens. And these are the emotional stages people often go through when receiving difficult feedback or processing unexpected information. So you see, the first thing is shock. Like, what? What do you mean, like what? You have called out 15 times this month. So you're surprised that you're about to get fired? What? We've had these conversations. What is happening? Why are you shocked? Have you been there before? I know I have. Right? Or you have missed the accuracy rate 10 times. I've had 5 different conversations with you about this. Why are you shocked that now you're going through the progressive disciplinary action or that you're on a pit? Like, why are we shocked? Because that's normal. So instead of being off put by their response, expect it. So again, Sarah stands for shock, anger, resistance, or acceptance. And when you understand this cycle, it helps to manage emotional responses and it helps to improve communication. So with shock is the initial reaction someone has when they receive feedback. So those signs of shock could be like wide eyes or silence or confusion or denial. Ooh, heavy on the denial, right? The key point here is it's important to give people space to process. Don't rush to problem solving. Let them sit in that. You can even get ahead of it. You might be shocked to hear this. But when you continue to call out, it impacts our business operations. And because of that, and because we've had several conversations about this, now I am going to have to write you up on a corrective action. I don't call out, but my data shows that you do. Okay? Here's the other thing. Our brains do something called positivity bias. So anytime you tell someone what they don't do, we're naturally inclined to think of all the times we have done it. That's what our brains naturally do. So don't get upset by that response. It's normal. Next is anger. So that can be someone being defensive or getting frustrated. And signs of this could be blaming or dismissing or raising their tone of voice. But here's the thing, when this is happening, you got to stay calm. You have to avoid matching their emotional intensity, or like the young folks say, don't match their energy. Don't match their energy. And some of you out there are probably like, oh, I match energy. I do it so well. Okay. This is what I do. Don't match their energy. Try to stay calm. And if you feel like it is impossible to stay calm, remove yourself. Don't remove yourself by just walking away, but very similar how we talked about, when we talked about awareness and we talked about engaging, it is very important to tell them I'm about to walk away just so we can maintain the dignity of this conversation. Circle back in 24 hours. Okay? Acknowledge the emotion without engaging in conflict. Conflict does not have to be confrontational, okay? Now, resistance, this is the person who pushes back and make excuses. Now, can I be really honest with y'all? Lean in. It's resistance. Like, it's the, why are we making excuses? You can find a reason not to do anything. I mean, it's so easy, right? We can find a reason. But let's not find the reason, okay? So when we think about the resistance piece, it's important here to be patient. It's important to focus on facts. And it's also important to encourage dialogue rather than trying to, again, win the conversation. It's about being present and being effective. And finally, after someone goes through the shock, then the anger, then the resistance, right? The blaming, that's not true, this isn't me, this won't work. It eventually gets to acceptance, where the person starts to understand and process that feedback. And signs of this could be calmness or like an open body language. And we want to get to that acceptance piece. But let's spend some more time in the anger and resistance part, because again, we're talking about creating a feedback safe environment. So when we're creating psychological safety, we must know how to respond to this emotional response, right? We have to know how to respond to Sarah. So let's talk about preparing for various anger responses. And before we go into this, I want to pause again. See, if this were a live meeting, we would have had activities and all of that stuff. We would have been in small groups. I would have heard your voices and all of that. But I want to pause for a second to see if there are any questions about Sarah. Shock, anger, resistance, then acceptance. Let me see. How many of you had heard of Sarah, the acronym Sarah? Put in the chat, yes or no. Have you heard of Sarah before? Put in the chat, yes or no. No, okay. Oh, good. We're learning something new. That's amazing. Okay, so here's another question, everyone. Hearing that there is an entire framework for people's emotional responses, how does that feel? How does that feel to see what I've been experiencing is almost kind of normal? What does that feel like? Put it in the chat. Oh, I love that, Jessica. Oh, thank you, Pam, affirming, validating. Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. Last question. How are we doing? Yes, Rachel, you're not alone. And that's the thing with validation. Sometimes we're like, am I crazy? Like, what in the world? I didn't say anything to be offensive, and they're still offended. Yeah, they're going through Sarah. Yes. Now, last thing I'm going to ask you before we talk about preparing for these responses, is this helpful thus far? Am I cooking? Tell me, is this helpful thus far? Put yes or yes, or no, we need to go over something a little bit more. Okay, I see it coming. Cooking with gas. Come on, Jessica, cooking with gas. Rachel, you say you feel like a hit dog. Listen, my grandmother says that all the time. Me too. To this day, I teach this for a living, so I'm held to a higher standard. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's still hard. I have to have conversations with myself. Don't match their energy because I'll be ready. So you are not alone, Rachel. You are not alone. All right, so we are about to talk about preparing for these various anger responses. Okay, thank you. We are going to talk about these various anger responses because when you have someone yelling at you, when you have the defender, when you have the crier or the withdrawer, all of those are anger and resistance responses. So what can we actually say in the moment when this is happening? Because often our amygdala now ignites. When someone's yelling at us, Or when someone's just going toe for toe, like defending, and you're like, no, this is not, what is there to defend? What do we say to keep ourselves in the prefrontal cortex? So yes, after operating with care, after telling our brains to listen, after breathing, and we want to stay in this conversation, screenshot this, okay, y'all? So screenshot it, take a picture, write it down. I hope you all are taking notes because this is helpful. Emotional processing manifests in diverse ways. You see, it's important to prepare for your interaction to respond, not to react, to respond in an objective yet compassionate way. So, we're about to talk about some language or actions to help assist with that approach. So, here's for the yeller, okay? You have someone yelling at you, something you can say. Tone is everything, facial expression is everything. So, watch my face, watch my tone. They're yelling. You can respond with, Ama, I really want to have this conversation with you, but first, I need you to lower your voice. And then you don't say another word until they shut that. No, I'm playing. Until they lower their tone, okay? You don't say another word until they lower their tone. When I'm coaching people, like when we do one-on-one coaching, we literally practice this. We role play it because it's hard and you have to program your amygdala. Don't take over. I am safe. And this is what you have to whisper to yourself. I am safe. The person is just angry. And that's when you can say, I need you to lower your tone. Another thing, because you're now putting it on the both of you, I like the second one better because it's sharing the accountability. You can say, hey, Ama, can we both pause and take a deep breath for a second? Or we will have to reschedule this because we're not being constructive. Or you can say, we're not bringing our best selves to this conversation. You see, when you say you, that automatically gets someone upset. So don't use you statements. You do this, you do that. Also write this down. Don't say always, don't say never, because no one's ever that consistent. We're just not. We're humans. So we oftentimes, we periodically, we sometimes, but we don't always, and we don't never. Okay? The other thing is when you say we, you're sharing the accountability. We probably should do this. We had a misunderstanding. We aren't seeing eye to eye. And finally, I statements. I feel, I see, I've observed, I perceive. Put it on you. Okay? So I just had to put that out there. Now, let's say you have the person who is defender. Oh, honey, they got a reason for everything. They didn't do this because of that. They weren't on time because it's your fault. They didn't get all the details of the event because of somebody else. They didn't follow up with sponsors because it's not their fault. Or that's not a part of my job description. No, your job description is to work here and do what I need you to do, right? But we're not saying that. We're not saying that, right? Because we care about our people. And so when they're defending, this can, make you shift. But nope, we're going to handle difficult conversations with confidence. And we're going to say, look, I see this as your responsibility. Let's talk about why you don't see it that way. Because again, remember when we go back to remember your why, right? With the clarity and remembering your why, because the purpose of this conversation is for growth. The purpose of this conversation is to do our best for our clients, for our constituents, for our participants, for our attendees. Go back to that why. Or if they're continuing to blame other people, blame can feel justified in the moment. I've been there, but I also know it often keeps us stuck. Let's shift the focus to what's within your control. So what do you feel like you can directly control? Y'all, when I tell you it shifts the conversation, tell me how you feel about that. I'm sorry. I'm gassing my own self up. How do you feel about that comment? Blame can often feel justified in the moment. You're validating them. I've been there. but it keeps us stuck. Let's shift to focus on what's within your control. What do you feel is within your control? If they say nothing, they might not be the best person for your team. But I can tell you what happens more is they start telling you their perspective. Again, you're listening to understand, not listening to be right or respond. And so when you see what their perspective is, now you know how to navigate that better. Now you have the crier. Some people really struggle with the crier. Now you have some people that cry every blue moon when they're receiving tough feedback, and that's okay. You can say something like, and you hear my tone. You're crying. What's coming up for you right now? I want to pause. Because I want to make sure you're okay. I see you're crying. What's coming up for you right now? And they're going to tell you. Or they may not. And that's okay. Your objective is not to get all the answers. Your objective is to show you care. And hopefully you'll get some answers. I see you're crying. What's coming up for you right now? But here's the other piece. You have some people that cry every time. Okay? You have some people where you can validate them in the moment and you can just be like, tears aren't a problem. They're just a part of being human. We can get through this together. Like you can tell they're truly emotional and their tears are used to show care and concern. But then you have other people that use tears for manipulation. Do we know anyone like that? Yes or no? Have we seen this before where they're using tears every time as manipulation because they don't want to deal with the truth? Put it in the chat. Yes or no? Can we relate to this? See some people, I see brains thinking, yeah, yes, Tasha. I see you, Tasha. Stephanie, yeah, you can relate to that. And so when we know those people, we can say something like this. I've noticed that emotions often come up when we talk about feedback. And you see how I'm saying it with a smile? I'm not saying it with like a face, or you see you trying to play me. Like I'm not doing any of that. You see, I see. Notice emotions often come up when we talk about feedback. I want to honor that and make sure that we can have an honest conversation for your growth. How do you suggest we continue this conversation? Put it back in their corner. Okay? Because here's something I want you to remember with the crier. Let the person know you are not being mean. You are just trying to help them. Deliver the feedback often at the end of the day. Have a box of tissue on hand. Some of you might be like, I know that. No, when I first started my leadership journey, my boss had to tell me, you need to get tissues in your office. You are HR, girl. What is wrong with you? Because I was taught you don't cry at work. You don't let them see you sweat. So when people were actually crying, I would just sit there frozen. Do you need a minute? That's how oh my gosh. That is how I would respond. I kid you not. Do you need a minute? And I would remove myself. Ooh, I have come a long way. So make sure you have a box of tissues at hand and then leave options to meet again if necessary. Okay. And so here's something else. We've talked about the crier. Now let's talk about the withdrawer. Because I've often had people ask me, I had to actually add this because so many people were like, what happens to the person that just shuts down? When someone shuts down, again, all of these are amygdala responses. So now we know, don't take it personal. Now we know that's not a sign of them not caring. Now we know this is them shutting down because they are in the freeze response of the amygdala. Now we can depersonalize it. But we have to address what we see. Oftentimes we talk around it. So something you can say is, I'm noticing you've gone quiet. I want to check in. What's going on for you right now? I really want to work through this together. Do you see how my tone changed? Do you see the quiet and the calm that you are probably feeling through the screen? What else you can say is, I've noticed that you seem a bit checked out right now. I don't want to leave this conversation without clarity, right? What's coming up for you? What are you thinking? Go back to Sarah. I know this might be shocking. You might be feeling angry, resistant. We can't fix anything we don't talk about. Coming up for you. What's happening? What's going through your mind? I'm here. Let's talk. So now you're showing support for them. You're showing validation of them. And you're letting them know, I know this might not be easy, but the conversation still needs to be had. I'm going to pause there. Questions, comments, please put it in the chat. Questions or comments, please put it in the chat. Now, mind you, this is a much longer workshop. So if this wasn't like an hour-long webinar and I was at your organization, we would be role-playing this. We will be breaking it down more. There will be a case study where you have to pinpoint the signs that are leading up to this. There's science behind this. But if all else fails, you can walk away with some words to say in the moment and also learn to depersonalize it. So I would love to hear your thoughts. What are your thoughts about some of these responses? Okay. I'm assuming some of you are thinking right now. So
there's one from Jessica in the Q&A.
Oh, perfect. Yes. Thank you. Let me see. Do you mind reading the question?
Yep. It says the withdrawer, exactly a family member's response on vacation last week, and I just got frustrated and didn't know how to bring it up without getting angry.
Yeah. See, I love to talk about this when talking about family more than anything else, right? Yes, we're talking about the workplace, but with family, it's best to get them by themselves. So one-on-one. And you want to always start with, I've noticed. So you don't want to accuse them. You want to be like, I've noticed a shift in your energy. I've noticed a shift in how you've been engaging. And I wanted to just talk to you one-on-one. Is everything okay? Or what's been going on? Or if you know you caused it, I noticed a shift in your energy after I said X, after I did Y. May I know more about how you experienced me in the moment? All of these are things that shows accountability and care at the same time. But one-on-one is going to be king, not in front of people. And not via text. We can't text this. This is a face-to-face or virtual to virtual type of conversation. Okay? So these responses give you confidence on how to respond to people and maintain. I don't have a better word than control. I know there's a better word than control. So if y'all think of a better word, put it in the chat. But maintain control of yourselves and maintain control of the conversation, but more so yourself. Because oftentimes when we, the thermostats, start to shift, the thermometer, which is the other person in the conversation, reads that. Oh, yes. Thank you, Jessica. Composure. Yes. We need to maintain our composure. These are great tips to reframe these conversations in my head. Sometimes I am too direct because I am focused on resolving the situation rather than slowing down and humanize the conversation. Thank you, Pam. I'm very direct as well. And what I've learned is resolving the situation is not always the goal. Connection sometimes needs to be the goal because then connection can help you resolve, right? So focus on connection versus focusing on resolving the situation. I don't have a better example of this than with my son. I know I use a lot of son examples, but he plays soccer and he went from like little kid soccer to like academy. And so with academy, with little kid soccer, he would get a bunch of goals and he loved the feeling of it. With academy, it was not about getting goals. It was about passing and leveraging your team members. And he was not getting that. Homeboy was LeBron on the field. Okay. Like he just wanted he was a ball hog. So the conversation I had with him was, all right, buddy, we're going to shift the goal. The goal is to pass the ball as many times as you can, not get it in the goal. It doesn't matter how many goals you get. What I'm counting right now and how I am cheering you on is how many times you pass the ball. So, Pam, when you are having these conversations, building connection is passing your ball. The goal for you is resolving the situation. We're not resolving the situation. We're getting points for building connection, i.e. passing the ball. So hopefully that's helpful. Rachel, you said, I think they are great, but it's the tone shift that made a big difference, as well as you have, do you have tips on tone? That's a good question. Not really. So I can feel it in my body. And I know that sounds so arbitrary, but I feel it in my body. And so when I want to be excited, like you'll hear my tone raise and I'll be excited and you'll see me smiling. And when I want to be more calm and more endearing, then I go in a lower register. I look them face to face and I slow down my words. Not slow down to be condescending, but slow down because I am also processing what I need to say next. Okay? Stephanie, you are not supposed to be therapists, but you know, we do some of everything when we're leaders. So, you know how therapists create a space for you to share? That is what you're doing. You're creating a space for someone to share, because the ultimate goal is to be effective. And going back to our why, what's the purpose of having the conversation? Lainey, you said what stops me sometimes is the denier who then turns denier who then turns the tables, and I end up questioning my perspective. Oh, I like to call that the gaslighter. And so acknowledge that we're just seeing this in two different ways, and that's okay. But I need you to let me share my perspective, and then I would love for you to share yours. And if they don't align, let's find one that works for the both of us. But call it out. Or if they want to continue to just tell all the lies, just stop the conversation. I feel like we're not. I feel like you're not hearing me, and because of that, I'm getting upset and going right back to I'm not bringing my best self to this conversation. So I need a moment. Can we reconvene tomorrow and go right back to that? Again, confidence, composure with yourselves and with the conversation. Okay, I don't know if any of you watched The Office, but I loved it. So when you're having these conversations, try your best to not walk away from the conversation with one person feeling uncomfortable, like the person in this hug, and unsettled, while the other person feels repaired and redeemed, right? Like we're not doing that. We're trying to sort out as much as we can in the conversation if possible. It's a two-way street. So if you still feel unsettled, schedule another meeting. Say that. I know we just talked, but I'm feeling unsettled. Can we have some moments? Like, can we like let this breathe and then reconvene another time or reconnect another time? Right? Um, yes, Lainey. Yes. I use that all the time. Okay. And so when you think about this, for me, the best moments happen when we have come to a newfound understanding. That's what I love about conflict. Conflict is nothing but expectations that don't align. That's all conflict is. And when we're having difficult conversations, it's because we're trying to iron out what those expectations are and find overlap or alignment. So for me, the best moments happen when we have a newfound understanding and when the conversation does end in a hug. Now, I love a good hug. So if we're hugging afterwards, like, yeah, I get it. You get me, I get you. I'm like, yes, we're winning, right? A real and genuine hug, not one like, this picture. So today we discussed a lot, everyone. We talked about creating a feedback safe work environment. We talked about the importance of listening. We talked about the brain science behind meltdowns. We talked about the care model. We talked about finding Sarah, right? So those emotional responses to feedback. We talked about the shock, the anger, the resistance, the acceptance. And we also talked about some compassionate clapback to those people responding with their amygdala, right? So we talked about what do we say to the crier, the yeller, the defender, the withdrawer. But out of everything we've talked about, and I know we are almost at the top of the hour, please put in the chat, what is one takeaway out of everything you've heard today? Please put in the chat, what is one takeaway? Just one, because education without action is entertainment. What is one takeaway? I want to hear from everyone. We've hung out for an hour. Please, what is your takeaway from today's webinar? While we wait, I am going to put this up. If you all would love to keep in touch with me, if you would like to learn more about coaching, if you would love to learn more about, training your teams, or you just need, 15 minutes to chat, please scan the QR code because I will also love your feedback. I want feedback. I want to know how this went for you. We covered a lot in an hour, but please scan the QR code, connect with me on LinkedIn. I want to hear your thoughts. Oh, this is good, Stephanie. I am safe. Don't rush to problem solve. Reminder to listen, to hear, not to respond. Jessica, this is great. It's not about winning, being right, or resolution. It's about progress. Yes. And creating a space to share, to care. Yes, care. That care model goes hard. Awesome. Pause and breathe when I tell you, whew, that is a game changer. Everyone, it has been such an honor and a privilege to be with you all today. Hopefully you were able to take a lot of notes and hopefully you go apply this. So y'all thought about that person when I said the withdrawer, when I said the yeller, when I said the crier, when I said the defender. Ooh, the defender. You all thought of someone. Go have the conversation. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Suzanne. Thank you so much, everyone.
You are amazing as usual. I just want to take you with me everywhere I go. Such a pleasure to have you today. And I will send everyone just this last slide as well too, but grab a quick screenshot if you can. If not, I'll send an email afterwards with her contact information. Make sure you provide some feedback in there if you have the time to. Thank you so much. Again, you're just such a pleasure. Love being around you and spending time with you. So.
Thank you.
I hope you all have a great day. Look forward to our webinar next month, as well as next week. We have our virtual check-in, our little